I think that is a big difference between men and women in their pricing. I read that men are more confident charging higher prices, that they don't question it as much. And I think the thing about that's specific to women is we just love to help people. We undercut our prices because we see that someone really needs our services and we just want to help them. It isn't even necessarily an insecurity thing all the time. It's just, I can see you can't afford my services. I really want to help you. I'm going to undercut myself to help you.
In this economy, a lot of business owners are tempted to compete on price or add more offers to chase revenue. But sometimes the problem is different to what they actually think it is, and their brand doesn't look like it deserves the price that they want to charge. My guest today is Caitlin Lang, who's built her business around the message that your branding isn't decoration, it's a pricing lever. And in this economy where everyone is telling you to add more, to do more, to discount more, I wanted to bring Caitlin on to talk about her approach and how different it is to doing those things. So, Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Such a pleasure. Now, you are a graphic designer, which is, I guess, what people probably weren't thinking when I was talking about pricing. Have you always been a graphic designer? How did you land in this niche working with women entrepreneurs? And the pricing conversation that you're talking about, is that something that you accidentally found into? Was there something specific that happened? I'd love to hear the story around where you landed, where you are now.
Sure. I have been a graphic designer for close to 30 years. Now I talk about myself more as a brand strategist and web designer. And part of that is because I am not just trying to make a pretty brand, like you said in my intro, especially for women service providers who are at the top of their game, who really need to show their expertise. I come in with a really holistic approach where I write the copy, I work on their messaging with them, I work on their positioning. So we're really trying to figure out how best to position them to attract their dream clients, to make it clear that they're the obvious choice for who they want to work with. And no, to answer your question, I have not always done this. This is a more recent, in the last 3 years, approach to my work. I started, as a more traditional graphic designer, doing business cards and logos and signage, and was really just the hands of the project, where someone else would tell me what to do and then I would make it look pretty. And I did that for a really long time. And you know I've been on my own in my own business for many years, but I've also been on retainer with different companies, and I've had many versions of my business over the years. And but I think the biggest change for me was I got divorced 7 years ago, and just really understood how just the importance of financial freedom and financial independence, and how important it is for women to be able to make their own money. And
Hmm.
I had taken a few years off of my business, because my ex-husband was prioritizing his own work. And when I realized I needed to get divorced, it was really scary. And I wasn't sure that I could support myself. I wasn't sure I had the tools. And so one of my real motivating forces right now in my business is helping women not feel that way, and helping women feel like they have the tools they need to support themselves and make their own money. And so I have a lot to say on that subject, but I feel like I could just go on, but I should pause there.
Yeah, I get it because I had a similar, I've got a similar story. Anyone that's been divorced knows, what that's like, and it is a really, really scary time. And I love it that you've shared like right up front that why. Like I think that when we tap into our why, we realize that our business is just the vehicle that gets us there. Because, you know, my why is quite similar but a little bit different. But what we do is so different. But when you're really
Yeah.
clear on why you do what you do, it makes it so much easier to be able to do what you do.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the economy to start with, because you and I were having a little bit of a conversation before we hit record. The economy now is very different to what it was 5 years ago, especially in the coaching and consulting space. what have you noticed, or what are you noticing in regards to, I guess, coaches and consultants and, what's coming up in your world?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot on sales calls that people's pipelines are slowing down, maybe even non-existent. They're making fewer sales, they're getting fewer calls, they're really feeling like people are tightening their belts and taking longer to make decisions, maybe deciding not to hire someone at all. And I've noticed in my own business, it took a little while to catch up to me. And I started hearing people talking about the bad economy, I don't know, probably over a year ago. And my business was still thriving. And I was sort of patting myself on the back for doing all the right things with my marketing and sales. And it came for me too at the beginning of the year. And my pipeline slowed way down. And I had to change my messaging and changed a little bit how I was doing my emails, changed a little bit how I was doing my LinkedIn. And also I invested in some sales coaching, which helped a lot. And so I quickly, this is the beauty also of being self-employed. You have levers you can pull. And so I pulled some levers, got the pipeline going again. But I think a lot of people are realizing that they need to step it up a notch, that you can't coast. A lot of things, like I had some things in my process that were a little bit half-assed, and that worked for me for a couple of years. And in this economy, that didn't work for me anymore. And I think
Mm,
people are finding that with their branding. Maybe their website didn't matter a year ago. Now it matters. Now, if you're comparing several different coaches and consultants, you're going to choose the person who has better messaging, who looks more professional. If you're pitching to corporate clients, they're going to want someone who really looks like they can be a player in that room. And what sufficed a couple of years ago in a different economy just isn't cutting it anymore. And so I've been giving some people some tough love about, I'm sorry, but half-ass isn't going to do it right now. And you've
yeah.
got to, and it's multi-pronged. You need good messaging. And what that means is you need to be able to speak directly to your target clients, make sure they understand that you understand what they're going through. So you need to be able to show that empathy in your messaging, show that show that you get it, and then show why you're the obvious choice for that client. But then you also need to look professional, and professional is just bare
Mm.
minimum. You need to look great. You need to stand out. You need to differentiate yourself. And a lot of coaching websites do look the same. And so one of the things that I bring to the table is I do really distinctive brands when people remember them, people notice them. And that's really helpful in this economy.
Yeah. And you absolutely walk your talk, because when I first saw your website, I fell in love with it. I've actually mentioned it, I think, on a couple of episodes about
Oh,
how
thank
different
you.
your brand is, because, I opened up and I just went, oh my God, I just fell in love with it because it's like nothing else I'd seen before. And your brand would not work for me, but it's so distinctive, and it's so like, oh, I absolutely love it. I fangirl over your brand. It's just beautiful.
Thank
So,
you.
guys, if you're listening, don't do it now. Wait till the end of the episode, but go and have a look at Caitlin's website, because it's you need to witness it. You need to see it, and that's just where I'm going to leave it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And you also made a really good point that that brand wouldn't work for you. And
Yeah.
that's so important also. And something that I work really hard on is making sure that every brand I do is right for my client, for their audience, and that I'm not just doing the same thing over and over again for everybody just because I like the way something looks. And so
Ah.
part of my process is I do a 90-minute deep dive with people I call a branding roadmap, where we go deep on who they are, where they've been, where they want to go, their target audience, all of their aesthetic likes and dislikes, and just their whole vibe. And from there, I write a really comprehensive creative brief, so it's really clear what we're trying to accomplish. And I go into lots of stuff about messaging and positioning and what transformation they're creating for their clients. And because I've done so much foundational work, then I'm able to do something that's really specific to them. And I really don't, none of my work is cookie cutter. I'm not just going to give you the same thing I gave someone else yesterday. Everybody gets a really distinctive brand that's specific to them.
That is a really good point, because if I went onto your website and tried to recreate that, like, I wouldn't even know where to start. Um, I'd love you to walk us through a real case study to sort of set the context. Who's someone that you worked with who was stuck at a certain price point, did their rebrand with you, and were able to raise their prices? What actually changed in how buyers saw them, but also I think there's probably something deeper here as well.
Yeah. So let's see. I launched a brand last year for a woman last May, I remember. And one of the things we also did is, in addition to her brand and website, we also worked on her packaging or how she was packaging her services, her packages. And she had just this whole laundry list of all these different services and all a la carte things. And I encouraged her to simplify it into three simple packages that we could message around clearly. We did a whole new brand for her. She had a DIY Squarespace website that just it looked just like a template, and it had a
Uh-huh.
lot of bad stock photography, and it hardly had any copy. It didn't speak to her target clients at all. So, we redid all our messaging. We elevated the brand. We did new custom photography. It was really beautiful. But we also just were really clear about what she was selling and who would want it. And within a month, she emailed me and she had three new clients. She'd raised her rates. So, and I think it was the clarity, but I think it was also her confidence.
Mm.
She was down, like she was, it's so interesting. She was a downsizing specialist for seniors. And with
Uh-huh.
her new brand, she was able to go get partnerships with a bunch of realtors, and she felt really confident doing these strategic partnerships. She went into some senior homes, and she had all these beautiful materials. And I think it was a combination of that confidence and the clarity around what she was selling and to who and why
Yeah.
it was valuable.
And I think that was the deeper part I was getting to, because a question that I get a lot is around that, oh, I don't feel like I should be able to ask that. And there's such an energetic, like money is energy, right? And when you don't feel confident, even if, and I'll put this in air quotes, like you're charging your worth, which I won't get into that. I've got some ideas around that.
Yeah.
But even if you are charging your worth, if you feel like you're almost like have a bit of like website shame or messaging shame, it's going to come across, and you might think that you've got a leads problem when you don't even realize that the problem is downstream, and it's just that energetically you don't have the confidence to ask for those prices.
Absolutely. And women on our best days have trouble with imposter syndrome. There's
Yeah.
all that stuff about how when we're applying for jobs, we need to check every single box. We,
Yeah.
are always over delivering and yeah, I think imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I just launched a brand a couple weeks ago, and she said the greatest thing when we were done, she said, seeing it all laid out this way, I'm so impressed with myself. And I
Yeah.
just loved hearing that because I think she was making a bit of a pivot, and she was trying to establish herself as more of a thought leader, but was having some hesitancy around it. And do I really have the bona fides to say that I am a thought leader? And seeing it all laid out in a really professional, organized way, she was more impressed with herself. And that is beautiful. I mean, I loved
Yeah.
hearing that.
That's
And
so
sorry, one
cool.
more story for you. I just remembered
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
did a brand in the fall. And so the other thing about me is I work in sprints. So I do entire brands in 2 weeks on my end and just 3 days with the client. So I'll usually have 4 meetings over 3 days where I present the work, get feedback, and then we fine tune, and the whole site goes live at the end of this third day. So I launched a brand a few months ago, but on the second day of the intensive, so it wasn't live yet, but we'd been working on it for 2 days. She went to a speaking engagement. She was speaking, and she said the website wasn't even live yet, but she just walked into the room standing taller and feeling more confident because she knew it was about to launch, and she just felt
Yeah.
more legit. And I just loved hearing that.
Absolutely. I know that feeling. It's so good.
Absolutely, yes.
How do you know when the real problem is positioning versus like a lead problem or a marketing problem? What tells you that it's a brand problem and not that marketing problem?
That's a good question. I mean, it's all so related, right? I
Yeah.
think I think it's hard to do effective marketing if you're not clear on your positioning, your messaging. That's for sure. I mean, you need to know. I think one problem a lot of service providers make is they're afraid to niche, and they're speaking to too many people. So then their messaging is muddled, their positioning is muddled, and then their marketing is not going to work because they don't know who they're talking to. So I think it's all really connected, but I do think it starts with positioning. who are you speaking to, who's your target audience, what are you going to accomplish for them. And then once you know that, then you can figure out how to message that, and then your marketing flows more easily. And then, and then the branding, it all, and then, it's still all connected. If you have great marketing, but then the marketing is sending people to your website, but you have a crummy website that's not, you know, doing what you need to do, then it's gonna, the road's gonna end there. Or if you have an incredible website but you're not doing the marketing and no one sees it, it's just gonna die on a vine. So it's all fitting together. It's not one thing. And I think, and that's, I mean, it's hard as a solopreneur, because like, where do I focus first?
Yeah.
But I think there's so many areas that you can invest time and money in. But I do think one of the things about working with me is that we're working out the messaging positioning too, in addition to the visuals.
Yeah. So, what is the difference between a brand that looks nice and a brand that actually commands premium prices? Because it is really difficult to tell the two apart. Like you're just saying there, our brand is an ecosystem, and sometimes
Mhm.
what people think is a problem is actually a problem that's somewhere else. And sometimes it's actually really difficult to tell where the problem is, right? So,
Yeah.
like, where, how do you differentiate that?
Well, one thing I see a lot is really beautiful websites, and I still don't know what the person does
Mm,
or for whom. That happens a lot, where it looks great. Maybe it's, has cool graphics and flashy animations. And I get to the bottom of the homepage and I'm like, I don't know what you do. I don't know who you're serving. And I don't know what to do next from here. And I think that that's probably the most common problem with sites that are really beautifully designed, that where when you haven't invested first in messaging and positioning.
mm. So there's the messaging, positioning, and then there's the branding piece. And I think a lot of people
Mhm.
think I'll rebrand once I'm bigger. But what you're talking about here is when you've got the brand that matches the messaging, you can charge the higher prices. So how do you know when to invest in that rebrand? And how do you balance that with it actually costs you to wait? I mean, I've just asked you a really big question.
Yeah, I mean, that comes up all the time. It is such a thing of, I need two more clients before I can afford to do a rebrand, but maybe I need a rebrand to get those two new clients. And so
Yeah.
that is the hard thing. Um, I think as soon as you know what you want to, just even vaguely what you want to do and for whom, I think it's worth investing in the brand. Put it on the credit card, take a little time to pay it off. But I do think, especially in this economy, there's going to be ROI on that. And what I found is that when I worked with women at both stages of the business, where they've just left corporate and they're putting out their shingle for the first time and they're just getting started. I do a lot of brands for women like that. I also work with women who are more established and have been around, 10, 12, 20 years. And even when what I've learned from doing brands for both is that if you have a general idea of what you want to do and for whom, we can do a brand that works for you for now, that's simple, that maybe isn't super clear yet on your offerings, but then it gets you in the door with the clients that you want to work with. You start getting revenue. And then in a couple of years, when you have a clear idea of exactly who you're serving, maybe you've fine-tuned your offerings a little bit more clearly, you can come back to me. And so far, I've had a few people come back, a few years later, and the brand still stands. And all we need to do is fine tune around the edges of the audience, just speaking to, like, for example, I launched a brand for a executive coach 3 summers ago. And just maybe a month ago, she came back and she was speaking pretty broadly to biotech and pharma. And she was she had different suite of offerings than she has now. That's, based on demand. She's adjusted how she's packaging her services and exactly who she's working for. And she realized that she really just wanted to work with life science leaders. So we just changed some of the messaging to just speak directly to life science leaders. We updated the logos on her website, we updated the testimonials, we updated her offering list. Brand was the same. and it wasn't a heavy lift. It was one day we fixed it up. So that brand from 3 years ago, even though she was brand new to her business, she was established in her career. All my clients are established in their careers. So I think if you are established in your career, you know what you want to do, you can invest in a brand right out of the gate.
Mm. I think you've made a really important point, and that is that sometimes you need to be a little bit more broad and get the data before you niche in, because I do see some people listening to that, like niche in right from the beginning advice, and they haven't really got that data to back it up. So I think that
Yeah.
that's really important that, yeah, go out there. What feels good? What's delivering the results? You know, where do you feel drawn to? What lights you up? There's so much in
Right.
that, and it all has to be in place.
Right. I always say when someone is afraid to niche or they don't know where niche, I always say, who do you want to work with? Go after
Yeah.
people you want to work with. Start there and, test the case, see if you can get those clients. And if not, maybe you need to adjust a little bit and broaden it or narrow it in a different direction. But I think just who you most want to work with is the best place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with the women that you work with, is there a specific mistake that you see them make in regards to their positioning and their pricing that you notice that men that may be in similar businesses don't make as often?
So interesting. I don't know for sure. I haven't worked honestly, I haven't worked with a man in a really long time, which is really kind of amazing. Or I haven't worked with a man as a solopreneur in a long time. Um, I mean, for that, I just know what I read. And I feel like I read that men are more confident charging higher prices, that they don't question it as much. And I think that thing about that's specific to women that I don't think holds men back as much is we just love to help people. And
Mm,
often that we undercut our prices because we see that someone really needs our services and we just want to help them. It's not even necessarily an insecurity thing all the time. It's just I can see you can't afford my services. I really want to help you. I'm going to undercut myself to help you. And so I think that is uh, probably a big difference between men and women in their pricing that I think is interesting and something that I've had to look at it myself. And I know that my clients do that too. But I do hear from my clients just being there's just a lot of uncertainty about what the market will bear and fear of trying. And I think that that's also what the new brand can do for someone is, people often say to me at the end of the brand, oh my God, I immediately feel like I can charge more because I just feel better about it, like we were talking about earlier. And I think that just any tool we can add to our tool belt to make us feel bigger and more confident is worth investing in.
yeah, totally, totally. What is a signal, I guess, or what's something you notice on when you look at someone's website that tells you, maybe shows you, has you thinking that they're underpricing? Is there anything there that actually shows that?
I don't know if that's a good question. That's something I haven't thought about whether I can tell that they're undercharging. And I don't know that I can tell from someone's website. It often comes up on calls that they know they're undercharging. So it's so common. And I feel like probably the majority of the sales calls, people who are inquiring about my services, it's one of the things that comes up is they say, I know I'm undercharging. I need to get out of this rut that I'm in.
This
And I'm
cycle.
hoping, yes, and I'm hoping a new brand will help me get to a point where I can charge more. But I don't know if I can always tell. I think what's interesting is I did a brand for women at the end of the year. And I always ask people to send me a few sites that they like aesthetically. And one of the sites she sent was really fantastic looking. And the woman looked it was for another coach and I didn't design it, but she looked really authoritative and she looked cool and the messaging was great and the website was fantastic. And then on her services page, she actually had her prices and they were so low. And we both were commenting on how the brand looked expensive and it looked
Uh-huh.
like she could charge a lot. And then her actual prices were incredibly low. And she is in a different part of the country than we live in. So it's possibly partly that, but it was shocking. And so I just thought of that. But it was sort of, that's an interesting, just a lesson, even for a branding person that I didn't like, I just assumed that she charged high prices just because of her brand.
Yeah.
But I think that's the power
Interesting.
of the brand, right? Because then
Uh-huh.
I think it it's one of the things that I think is important when you're a solopreneur too, is to pre-screen a little bit. And
Mm.
if you have high ticket offerings and you're charging premium prices, you want to pre-screen a little bit before people get on calls with you. And so they know that you're premium, they know that you're high ticket, and your brand
Yeah.
is a big part of that.
Yeah, totally. Now, I know you've talked about that, you're the graphic designer and the brand, but the messaging is also really, really important. And you
Mhm.
have a free resource on how to get the messaging right for your homepage. Can you share a little bit around, what it is and why people might consider actually grabbing a copy of this?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So it's on my website. My website has a stupid long URL. It's liquidformdesign.com, but it's in the nav bar as a freebie. And I call it the 10-minute homepage fix. And it's a guide to upgrading your homepage messaging so that it speaks directly to your target clients, shows that you understand their pain points and how you're the obvious person to solve those problems. And so it's a little 8-minute video where I walk you through a little workbook and why I'm doing what I'm doing, and there's some questions, little questionnaire to fill out to answer, to work on your messaging. And then it also includes some AI prompts to get you started. And I was thinking though, I should update those AI prompts because I've been feeling more and more frustrated with AI and just feeling
Oh my
like it
God,
is
yes.
not, I'm still using it to organize information, but I actually haven't used it to write in a long time because it's not cutting it.
It
And
is
so
not.
it is not. And so I actually been meaning to update those prompts a little bit, but I think it's a good place to get you started. And and I think there's some good exercises to help you think about how you want to describe your services and how to attract your target clients. And then the AI prompts it'll get you started and get you thinking and get you brainstorming, and just point you in the right direction to have homepage copy that's more direct and more effective. And I think one other thing that I'll say about that is, I think one thing that often happens with sites that look fantastic and that are really well designed, but aren't as effective, is people sometimes try to be too cute with their headlines and
Mm-hmm.
use little puns or metaphors, or I don't just cute and catchy, but often that's not communicating well. And so I
Yeah.
encourage people also to really focus on communicating clearly and make sure that the person that you're speaking to will really know what you're saying and not just think, oh, that's a cute turn of phrase. And I think that's
Mm.
where AI is really failing people right now, is it's creating a lot of really nice sounding but empty phrases. And we need to be more critical of when we're using AI and saying, is that actually saying something, or can I say it better and more
Yeah,
clearly?
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I've just been saying recently, or actually, I've been talking about this for a long time. A lot of people that I work with and you work with are real experts in what they
Mm-hmm.
do. And they try and get into their headline or into their bio, something that shows people how fancy and how experienced they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not the place for it. Like that
Yeah.
information goes into your content. That
Yeah.
goes down the bottom, but right at the top, people need to understand what it is you do. Like that's not the place to get fancy.
Yes. I completely agree. Simple,
Yeah,
clear. Yeah. To the point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So to get a copy of that free resource, we've popped the link in the show notes below wherever you're listening. Caitlin, for people that have listened to this conversation and they're like, oh, I know I need to work on my brand or my messaging or whatever it is, where's the first place that they should start to look? I mean, we've just talked about the headline. Is, is it an overarching thing? Like, where would you suggest people start?
I think first I would start with getting clear on who you work, who you want to work with, what are their pain points, what are the problems that you're solving for them, how do they feel before they work with you, how do they feel after, and get really clear on that. And I think I really believe that it's better to have no website than a website that you're embarrassed to share.
Ah, interesting.
I think if you are embarrassed to share your website, take it down. It's not doing its job. It's holding you back. If you are cringing when you're sharing that website, just take it down. Work on your LinkedIn, have a killer LinkedIn page, take your website down until you're ready to invest in a real brand. That's what I think.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Caitlin, thanks so much for sharing today. This has been such a fascinating conversation. And yeah, you've just shared so much gold. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.